I'd like to show you many slides, too many actually. So I'm going to talk in my best language, which is Mandarin, obviously. So with the help of my interpreters today, I wish I can still get over my ideas to you. 好，从现在开。
Now we're speaking Mandarin. I hope that everyone will feel comfortable listening to my translations or my presentation. Let me start from phrases. Over the past few years, we have seen a lot of phrases about digital authoritarianism, and you are seeing different terms. But these terms are coined over the past few years. You can see several of them on this slide. As far as I can tell, one of my Chinese friends, who is called Mo Zhixu, coined this term. Digital authoritarianism is on the rise. It's not just happening in China, but also happening regionally and even globally. In 2018, Freedom on the Net released a report. And of course, China suffered from the most deteriorating situation, but many countries follow suit, including some countries in Asia. According to my Chinese friends, Mo Zhixu, and his definitions about neo-totalitarianism or digital authoritarianism, he believes that in China, these qualities on the slide are happening in China, including administrative aspects, including state capitalism, as well as the monopoly in different aspects of society, including educational and cultural aspects. Chinese governments also invest in a lot of resources in the management system and maintaining mechanism. In the past, we would argue that whether it is possible to nail Jello to the wall, but I would argue that in China, it can be done. And there are two important figures in China. On the right-hand side, this is the director of the Information and Internet Office in China. And in the past, some people would call him as the online emperor of China. And on the left-hand side, of course, you can see Emperor Xi Jinping, who is also the Chinese president. But it still looks like that the offline emperor have more power than the online emperor, because now the figure on the right-hand side is in jail. Under this context, people start to ask whether internet changes China or China changes the internet. I think the better answer is that these two phenomena coexist. One of my friends, Michael Anti, have mentioned that Twitter as for revolutions, while Weibo as for stability maintenance. I think this statements clearly represented the situation there in China. So how does digital authoritarianism rise in China? And since the beginning of internet, China has been trying to influence this arena. And of course, with their technology advances by the year of 2008, China has become the largest internet population source in the world. And Chinese governments invested increasing numbers and amount of resources in internet. Many internet users are using forum, blog, videos, and Weibo and social media to speak out. And they have been speaking out voices different from official statements. And Chinese government is under pressure because of this development. In 2010, they called it the year of Weibo. You will see more and more we media, and they gradually form two different kind of public opinions. One is the official one is the non-official ones, and actually the official ones is on the defensive side. So because of this phenomena, Chinese government is determined to change this situation. Google was forced to withdraw from China in 2010, and also by around this time, Chinese government established a unified Internet and Information Office in the central government. And also around this time, BAT becomes important organizations online, including Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent. And also around this time, online security have become synonymous to national security. That's why Chinese government has become a priority for the Chinese government to secure the internet speech and its freedom of speech. All the authoritarian regimes worship their leaders, and the Chinese media actually breaks the records in the history. You can see all the report on the media is about President Xi, and it's all happenings across all different media outlets. And everyone need to state their loyalty to the governments and to the political party. And not just about the news media, but also about data. This kind of personal worship has become crazy in China. There are all different kind of songs or propaganda about the president. In this kind of authoritarian control, they have emerged from the Great Firewall to mass surveillance, to export their control model to different parts of the world and become sharp powers on the right-hand side. You can see the evolvements and evolution. And this is a specific mobile app in China that is released by the Chinese government. Chinese governments invest a lot of resources in these mobile applications. For example, on the right-hand side, this is the recruitment advertisement. Chinese government is recruiting a lot of people to operate and maintain this mobile application. And some people would say that WeChat is very powerful in China. However, this official mobile application is even more powerful. Chinese government requires all the civil citizens and civil servants to download this application, and each employee need to spend at least 30 minutes each day on these applications to learn about the policy or personal worship. Along with these mobile applications, you can see many interesting phenomena. There's a ranking systems in the mobile applications. If you're lagging behind in your organizations, your name may be published. And there are also different software or tools that help those users to get more points. And of course, this architects or these engineers behind this software is in jail now. This kind of digital authoritarianism have utilized a lot of power and knowledge and tried to monopolize this internet space. And on the right-hand side, you can see that in the past, Chinese users have different information sources, but now everyone have to learn and have to use these mobile applications from the government. So in China, it's not just about attention economy. Attention has become political, and attention is a party asset. And all the internet users have to follow a certain policy. If you attract too much attention, you become the enemy of the government. And I would like to quote from Isaac. Isaac has always placed this tweet on the top because he believed that censorship no longer works by hiding information from you. Censorship works by flooding you. They give you a lot of information to overwhelm your attention and try to occupy all your attention span.
And of course, by deleting and also by auditing information, the process is still going on. For example, we have this 50 Cent Party and also censoring robots. I think all of you are familiar with it. There are other means of censorship, for example, fake ID and also different organization of auditing the internet. And also reviewing the internet, and also there are volunteers. A lot of them come from college. They could be volunteers or they are forced to become volunteers. And it's a huge team. And I would like to elaborate on this case. He is a human rights lawyer, Pu Zhiqiang, and he was arrested. And then he was actually became a defendant, and actually he was sent to prison only because one sentence on Weibo. And on that day, there was a piece of official announcement. And according to the news release from the government saying that a lot of netizens saying that he is not patriotic, he is espionage, he's appealing to, for example, other countries, Japan, and also from the official announcement, it says, okay, the government should punish all these lawyers. However, one of them, there's one incident. So there's one student called Pu Zhiqiang, and he was in a contest, and his school announced this good piece of news that there's one student, Pu Zhiqiang, actually he won a reward in a contest. However, the netizens, they are attacking the lawyer Pu Zhiqiang instead of the student Pu Zhiqiang. That means these two people, they share the same name, but apparently these robots or the 50 cents, they got the wrong target. So in recent years, the Chinese officials, they focus on two ways and one Xin, meaning Weibo, WeChat. And a lot of times they have a lot of deleting works, meaning they have 9 forbidden and 9 and 7 baselines. And 9 forbidden meaning all these cannot be passed or cannot be seen on internet. And there are 7 baselines, and it's not really a concrete framework. Here, I would like to elaborate in this massive reviewing system, how could they be sustainable? So one major reason is that they externalize the censorship cost to digital platforms. And in this chart, in this picture, you can see the Internet Censorship Bureau organization. They will talk to the internet, the digital platforms. And you can see in 2017, 2018, we are seeing a lot of digital platforms being asked to the rendezvous, to appointments. And you can see this is a chart of all the numbers of appointments they had with the Digital Censorship Office. And here you can see why they were asked to attend the rendezvous, the appointments, because they were asked to close the account, to delete certain content, and also they were asked to stop updating or maybe stop uploading news for at least 7 days or even 1 month. On these platforms, they were sent to or asked to appointment. There are various reasons. It could be fake news or there are some illegal announcements. However, this information, we extracted this from citizen media within China. And this is a survey and actually report from a grassroots media. And yet it was very quickly deleted after it's seen on the internet. But still, it shows us that if you want to pursue the truth, you can still do something. At least it's available on the internet somewhere. And this media is called NGOCN. They have a voice project, and also they have a grassroots media project. So they have crowdfunding. And NGOCN, they want to break the silence when everybody is kept silent. And I will come back to this slide later. There's a new phenomenon, not really new, on the internet as long as you claim yourself to be Chinese. So if you claim you're Chinese, then you have no press freedom, whether you are in or out of China. For example, 9 years ago, I had a friend, I knew him, Wang Yi, and his real name is Chen Jianping. He only said like these 5 words: the angry young people, go. And with this short sentence, he was arrested. And I asked my 8-year-old and 10-year-old daughter to send him postcards. And he said he did not receive these postcards at all. And the Great Firewalls is taller than ever. There are all kinds of reviewing, monitoring, etc. And we can say the internet in China now is officially a police state 2.0. And on the right-hand side is really AR. It's like CCTV. They are detecting possible crimes. And also the stability maintenance now is based on grid management, meaning that they have online database, they have real-time monitoring, and also it collaborates with offline stability maintenance efforts. They have closer and closer collaboration. There's 0 blind spots. We have seen this Skynet, Sky Eyes, especially in CBD areas, for real-time monitoring of all citizens. Also, we have this education application, meaning intelligent education. With such facial recognition in the educational area, in the educational space, actually, this report, we derived it from a English media from China, because China now, they are proud to say that they have advanced technologies in facial recognition and also internet censorship. And also for the Internet Credibility Office, all the data is open to public, and also the official media outlets, Xinhua She and CCTV, actually they have some official announcements. They are more than willing to show the world that how advanced they are in this censorship and also reviewing technology. And of course, the mainstream medias, they dare not to show of their technologies. And of course, we know the facial recognition technologies in China is really advanced, not just the face, but also postures and also the voice recognition. Everything is really advanced. For example, we have SenseTime and also McVille. They are number 1, number 2 in the industry. And these websites, actually, we can connect to these websites anywhere from around the world. It's all open. They can demo this. They're willing to demo these technologies on the internet, and they claim that these technologies is contributing to stability maintenance. And also, they're saying that they can censor UGC content, and they can censor the media content, and supposedly it's for the government. Social credit system, SCS, that's another topic. The system integrates some existing mechanisms so that it can operate more effectively and more smoothly. SCS has started since 2007. And among them, all the measures, we all know that in Suining, in Jiangsu province, it's one of the most famous spots. It's a test pilot spot. So they categorize the citizens here into 4 categories. So it's A, B, C, D. So the A citizens, they can enjoy some more benefits, whereas the D grade citizens, they will receive discrimination and also some extra limits on every aspect of their life. For this, SCS is now getting closer to, for example, enlisting to school and also applying for insurance. So what are the items that will add or help you upgrade your category or downgrade? For example, to downgrade, there could be some smearing or blackmailing people on the internet, or just simply some negative comment on the internet that will drive you downgrading. And also, there are more and more cities in China, they are building their own system. However, there's not yet a nationwide system, but a lot of cities in China, they are building this SCS system. They are building the social credit, how they operate, how they evaluate, how they give scores. It could be a merit, meaning a positive reward system, or it could be a negative, meaning demerit system to prevent some negative behaviors. So the data-fied society, that means the whole society or more and more small communities in China, they will become the digital. They will be like Foucault said, it's like a round area where all the eyes are on you. So these censorship for BAT, BATJ, ATT, now they're guardians of the party state. For example, TikTok, it belongs to the Jinzi Toutiao, one officially owned media group. And all this not only pose influence to Chinese citizens, but also they are influencing neighboring countries and also neighboring regions. According to overseas report, Sarah Koch, it says that China now is buying media outlets in Hong Kong as well as in Taiwan. And China, they are willing to provide some rewards, for example, advertisement. They're willing to buy some advertisements to those media who are willing to cooperate. For example, in Hong Kong, they would sometimes call these overseas media, for example, in Taiwan, call the journalists or the managers, and they will pay special attention on certain piece of news. For example, assigning or directly saying, how should you report this piece of news? And a lot of media now they are being interfered or threatened by China. Therefore, some media actually they are suffering financially, and they are becoming more and more vulnerable to China's influence. In Taiwan, one of our most historical media group, Wang Wang China Times, when it was purchased or merged by Wang Wang, Mr. Tsai, the first thing he did after acquiring the group is that he went to Beijing and talked to the National Taiwan office, saying that Sir, we just purchased the China Times in Taiwan. That's the first thing he did after he acquired the group. And also the pilgrim road to Beijing, meaning that a lot of media outlets, they would visit Beijing, they would attend seminars like this. They would have, for example, this seminar is called Media Across the Strait. They have this joint seminar, and they would have no other personal opinion aside from what they receive or they are asked to do. So this is authoritarian populism, as we can see in Taiwan. And a lot of media outlets, they are sharing this friendly to China news announcements. And these media, they are actually most of them are owned by Chinese-friendly groups, and we can see a lot of news. All the resources, all the time, are on politics. Most of the time, we can say is that we return to the past. But even though we are seeing all these phenomena, we need not despair. We can say, for example, even though the Chinese media, they want other people to feel, okay, they are so advanced that they can cover all areas and there's no blind spots. They are trying to make you feel weak, and also they want to make you feel fear, and also self-evaluation. This is what authoritarianism want you to do, and that's what they want to see. And I have to emphasize that the digital authoritarianism in China is not something as strong as you see. I think there are a lot of things we can still do. We need to explore the facts, to dig the facts. For example, it could be citizen media, global voices, and we need to reclaim the truth. We can still seek justice. I think journalists and also citizen journalists, and also we have human rights lawyers at academia circle, and also the intelligent, a lot of people in the society, they can work together on these, and we can build more alliance, solidarity, and also we can take actions together, whether it's big or small. And with just a little luck, perhaps digital authoritarianism is about to an end, because we have passed the peak. Because digital authoritarianism, at its peak, we can say it's about to it will start to collapse. Thank you so much.
So next we will invite Mong Palatino from the Philippines and from GV.
Magandang umaga, good morning everyone. First, the map is wrong. It's not South China Sea. We renamed it West Philippine Sea. So, my presentation will try to explain how digital authoritarianism, or the concept of digital authoritarianism, is being applied in the Southeast Asian region. I'm the Southeast Asia editor of Global Voices, and we've been covering many reports across the region about free speech, about laws on free speech and media laws. So the first question is, did the rise of and spread of digital tools lead to the emergence of authoritarian regimes in the region? The short answer is no. Duterte, on your left, grabbed global headlines because of his drug war in 2016, and it's only later he admitted that he hired a cyber army for his candidacy. But he is a newcomer in a region ruled already by controversial leaders and political parties. Hun Sen, on the right side of Duterte, the Prime Minister of Cambodia, has been in power since the 1980s. He is the longest-serving Prime Minister in the Southeast Asian region. And there is almost no opposition in Cambodia. And how did they do that? They banned the opposition. The Thai military has launched 12 coups, 20 if you will add the unsuccessful coups in the past century. Singapore's ruling party has been in power since the 1950s. And before its loss in 2018, Malaysia's UMNO has been in power also since the 1950s. And then we have an absolute monarchy in Brunei, communist states in Vietnam and Laos. So even before the rise of digital tools, there were already authoritarian governments or governments accused of having authoritarian tendencies. So when we say digital authoritarianism, we are not blaming how the internet gave us Duterte and despots. Rather, we are referring to how the internet has been weaponized in aid of existing authoritarian regimes, or how the supposedly tools of empowerment are mobilized for mass surveillance, promote hate, especially in societies with deep class divisions and caste system, prevent the rise of genuine opposition, destroy solidarity so that communities will not be spaces of resistance against oppressive governments. It also involves bombarding us with insane and senseless information or spam. But in this case, these are politicians mouthing trash, spewing hate. And these are alarmingly spread at a fast and a widespread level by social media tools, bots, and state-backed trolls. And my example, again, for this is Duterte, who is always grabbing global headlines because of his controversial remarks, anti-women statements. But we think he is deliberately doing it because he wants to distract public attention, especially during moments when there are corruption cases against his government. We are critical of digital tools developed, imported, exported, adapted, bought to weaken democracy. But we are also more critical, and we should be more critical of the enabling conditions that pave the way for the rise of the digital authoritarianism. So imagine Southeast Asia, or even the Asia-Pacific region 10 years ago. During this time, bloggers were hailed as citizen journalists, reporting on corruption, bad governance, abuse of power, netizens providing real-time updates during disasters. There were prominent public figures who tapped the reach of the internet to mobilize young supporters like Obama in the US, Noynoy Aquino in the Philippines in 2010, Jokowi of Indonesia. If you will review news reports during that period, there was hope of a Southeast Asian spring, similar to the Arab Spring, that will topple corrupt and hateful governments. We were seeing the newness, the potency, the threat posed by the internet to the old order. And in our reports, there was a narrative of seeing a weapon that we can finally wield against those in power. Or so we think. Because despite the triumphalist tone of our belief and confidence in the virtual world to challenge real-world problems, there was a stark reality. And this was very evident in Southeast Asia. What was not prominently and consistently emphasized was the great divide between those who have access to the internet and those who are not connected online. It mirrors the persistent urban-rural divide in many of our countries, reflecting the extreme inequality in our respective societies and in the region as well. And with some even preaching reaching a laughable level that Wi-Fi connections or how the application of magical digital tools can somehow solve the curse of intergeneration poverty. With some reducing politics into a mere communication gap between those who rule and the ruled. So I will touch again on this topic in the concluding part of my presentation. But during this period, when we were celebrating the so-called social media revolutions in many parts of the world, it coincided with the aggressive push for legislations that seek to curtail the influence of the internet. So first, there were a series of anti-cybercrime laws. Governments began updating media laws to make them applicable in regulating new media. Across the region, we saw countries passing laws on cyber libel, cyber defamation. In Vietnam, they have Decree number 72. Myanmar's use of Article 66D, a law passed during the junta government. Thailand's Computer Crimes Act, combined with its Les Majestés. The cybercrime law in the Philippines, which has a cyber libel provision. And then after the passage of these anti-cybercrime laws, we are now witnessing the rush to pass legislation versus so-called fake news. There's also a trend, although not yet catching up in this part of the world, of laws against encryption, laws that institutionalize internet shutdowns during crisis moments. And if we will review these laws, it seems as if governments are copying from each other in adopting provisions that will curtail free speech and make it difficult for media to do their work. These laws are not intended to stop cybercrimes and cyber attacks and disinformation. What they wanted is the state to have a monopoly in committing these crimes. Governments do not want to stop cyber attacks. They want to be the only power capable of committing cyber attacks. So we were overwhelmed with states framing the internet legislation linked to concepts like national security. Who will argue with national security? Law and order, public interest. Indonesia is actively, aggressively regulating the internet versus pornography or obscene acts. Malaysia wants to preserve racial harmony and social harmony. Singapore's definition of fake news is alarming. This is not a translation. This is the text. So Article 2 states that a statement is false if it is false. So if it is false or misleading, whether wholly or in part, whether on its own or in the context in which it appears. So when I first read it, I went to the Parliament website and I got the text. So this is alarming because there are many countries passing fake news laws. And many of the statements of civil society is that governments have failed to consult the public. So Singapore did it differently. In 2018, they conducted a widespread public consultation on passing a law named Protection from Online Falsehoods and Manipulation Act, attended by scholars, human rights activists, civil society, the academe, even tech companies. But despite this widespread consultation, we have a fake news law from Singapore passed last month, which will prosecute anyone, even those who are not living in Singapore, as long as the false content is accessed about Singapore. Laws that are too broad, too vague, yet brutally precise in targeting free speech. States are redefining cybercrimes by limiting them to what ordinary citizens are doing, what we are doing, instead of what states are doing against public interests. So it is always the state defining cybercrime about what we ordinary citizens are capable of doing. Because in my book, if you will ask me what cybercrime is, slow internet should be tagged as cybercrime. Creepy surveillance mechanisms from the state should be called cybercrimes. Governments deciding what constitutes the obscene, what contravenes public morality, public safety. And in Singapore, they have law on fake news for public tranquility. So that's the term they're using. And public interest. In shaping public opinion, crusading governments rationalize their actions by invoking the need to protect the public from online evils. They frame the debate away from issues that matter to us. Because if they are too keen to promote public welfare, Where are the laws on internet rights? Where are the laws on the protection of consumers against bad internet service? Laws against state intrusion in our lives? Creepy surveillance tools? And which brings me to my next point about the so-called China model. Talking about a systematic approach on clamping down on free speech, we are alarmed to see the adoption of the so-called China model in many countries. If you will read news from many countries, you will see China model being applied in this so and so country. The use of sophisticated technologies by security forces to control the local population. The weaponization of the bureaucracy in silencing the opposition. But I think it is not enough to pinpoint the China model and blame it for what's happening in our respective countries. Because applied to the region, in particular the Southeast Asia region, the China model becomes more sinister because it is fused with the built-in or local models of oppression, a deadly mix of tools that buttress the authoritarian features of governments. What are these local instruments of oppression? We have antiquated media laws, security apparatus designed to gag the population, talking about the jailing of bloggers in countries like Vietnam, agencies towing the line of the ruling party, social institutions coerced to self-censor and kill critical thinking, specific political party systems, electoral processes, and economic policies that engender inequality and which preserve status quo. It is not that our governments suddenly became authoritarian because they were inspired by what China is doing. We already have laws, repressive laws on sedition, on secrecy. The Reuters reporters in Myanmar were jailed using a colonial-era law. Law on whistleblowing. What they got is Chinese political support, imported Chinese hardware, internet regulation mechanisms, Chinese totalitarian surveillance techniques to reinforce their own unique or special way of controlling the local population. This did not entail new mechanisms. States are still led by old-school bureaucrats dependent on laws, a loyal security force, a dependable judiciary to attack critics. Perhaps the cyber army in many countries is an innovation, but notice how this is still patterned after how the military operates. And we saw that its impact is not limited to suppressing free speech. This has already succeeded in manipulating elections. This is a year of elections in Southeast Asia. And we saw how the distortion of so many social media tools to shape public opinion, the undermining of political processes, and removing of accountability. So for me, I want to define digital authoritarianism as a scary pattern of mixing digital and archaic tools of oppression to preserve the rule of despots and destroy the hope of any future, of any alternative future. So my last point is there a way out of this situation we are in? How can we break the rule of autocrats? How can we reclaim the promise and potential of the internet to strengthen our democratic vision? How can we assert our demands when voting is compromised? I'm sorry, my phone is Huawei's. When voting is compromised, results are digitally manipulated, public discourse is polluted by disinformation, and institutions are hostaged. So I dare say we go back to the basics of political organizing. In the grassroots, we fight not only fake news, but cynicism and planting the seeds of hope for a new political future. If we want new laws, the starting point is not lobbying, and I'm saying this as a former legislator, but political education in our communities. We want social movements backed by real political strength that can engage both corporate and bureaucratic powers. strong civil society making an impact from Asia to Silicon Valley. Through political organizing, we develop partnerships with various sectors who can contribute in the campaign. Students, writers, workers, farmers, software developers, who each have a role in this fight against what we call digital authoritarianism. Addressing the roots of conflict in society, attacking the deeper problems engendered by economic policies that are biased against the poor, building power in the local to reverse power imbalance. In other words, directly working to fight the forces, the social conditions that allowed authoritarians to claim power in the first place. And technology will be our friend in this long fight. But it is the people, and mainly the people, who will lead this struggle. So it is not a social media revolution. It will not be a digital revolution that will save us, but it is people power revolution. Thank you very much.